Lane Kiffin continues to make waves in college football, and it's a great thing for Ole Miss. It gives them a ton of attention, but now they're hoping to take that to another level on the field. And the 10 guys we'll talk about today could make Lane Kiffin a mainstay in terms of you can't get him to go away because this team's playing well and he's doing things to get attention to the Rebels. One of the players he brought in didn't get the most attention, but it was a solid addition is John Saunders. The transfer comes in from Miami of Ohio and brings good size to the secondary and someone who can maybe make a bigger impact on this team. The pass defense was decent last year at 55th in the country, and a guy like John Saunders could play a bigger role, maybe even more than he did at Miami, Ohio. You look at what this team has coming back. Another guy that fits into that secondary, who is another transfer, Shim Young, the former Iowa State transfer, really settled in as a safety for the Rebels. And I think that again, we saw what he could do at Iowa State, and the question is about could he take his game to another level? I think there's still a lot of improvement that he could do to make him even better, but he's a reliable playmaker. Again, who could take a step forward and give this team, again, in the SEC, you're going to face a ton of talent. Fortunately, for for this team, you're going to face a lot of talent in practice as well. You're going to face a lot of players that will I think you're gonna give a lot. You're gonna get a lot of good reps because you're facing a lot of talent. One of the players that you will face, maybe the secondary doesn't face him as much, is Michael Trigg, a player who's we're still waiting for him to break out, but it's easy to see why he could be a big time player. We saw it in the spring game last year, didn't really happen, but he's an athletic player. He's a player with a big catch radius, someone who can make life easy for the quarterbacks. And it's just a matter of what can he do to elevate his game and be a reliable playmaker. There's another tight end who we'll talk about that's going to compete for reps, that's going to compete for starting time. So we'll see what happens when those two are competing and going back and forth. There's so many players that can make an impact in this passing attack. So it's going to be about who's the most efficient. Trey Harris comes in from Louisiana Tech, and they believe that he can be a big time playmaker for this offense. 935 yards and 10 touchdowns last year. I think the biggest question I have is what is the transition from Conference USA to the SEC look like? They brought in some talent from the group of five that obviously they believe can compete and can play at this level. It's just that I don't know how to determine who is actually going to be a good player because Conference USA does not provide you with a ton of quality players to play against. So, how much do we have to put an asterisk on that kind of production? Another player that kind of fits into that is Zakari Franklin. You look at what he did at UTSA last year. UTSA obviously was one of the most exciting teams in college football. A lot of people believe that he is one of the best receivers in the SEC already, but I need to see what he can do against SEC cornerbacks. I need to see what he can do against even some of his own teammates. What does that look like? What does he look like in a new scheme, a new system? And honestly, there are people that thought DeCorian Clark was better than Zakari Franklin at UTSA last year. So, what does Franklin do to elevate his game? Again, going from Conference USA to the SEC, what is he able to do? How is he able to elevate his game and prove that he belongs at that next level? Another transfer we'll talk about, Monty Montgomery comes in from Louisville, a Louisville defense that was one of the most disruptive in college football for the record comes into a group, a front seven that has talent, and they're just looking for that reliable playmaker to add to one of the other guys we'll talk about here. Monty Montgomery will be that guy. 70 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, a career 160 tackles, 23 and a half tackles for loss. He's a proven playmaker. He knows what he needs to do. He knows how to make plays, how to get guys in position. So he was a great addition, in my opinion, to a team that is just looking every single year to add quality talent. And they did that in getting Montgomery. Quarterback is the interesting position. Jackson Dart is back after an up and down year. He obviously has some competition behind him that he needs to fend off, but the talent level is there. I think we saw at USC, you saw in his time when he started as a freshman that he could be a really good player. He just needs to get in that comfort zone. And last year we saw some of that, we also saw the struggles. 2,900 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 11 picks is not ideal, but the talent level is there. I know that he can do it. It's just a matter of, can he get comfortable and playing against SEC competition? Can he elevate his game to another level where he can make a big time impact on this team and be able to help this team get to another level? Because the talent level is there. Lane Kiffin is doing everything in his power to be able to keep Ole Miss competitive with the teams in the SEC and the SEC West specifically. It's just a matter of certain players taking steps forward, and the quarterback position has to be one of your better positions if you want to do anything in the SEC. I don't think Ole Miss has the talent defensively to rely on that. They need this offense to be good, and they can't just rely on the rushing attack this year. They cannot rely on one player to carry them. Jackson Dart needs to take a step forward. A player that they added to help him with that is Kaden Preschorn. The Memphis transfer had 602 yards and 7 touchdowns in 2022. He's 6'5", 255 pounds, a big target. And like I said, Michael Trigg and Preschorn will go back and forth, and hopefully they find ways to get both of them on the field. I really like what they could do. I like that potential. And if the wide receivers aren't getting the job done, you could more look at the tight ends to take over. You could look at the tight ends to be that go-to player, to be able to take your team to another level, to be able to elevate this program and keep them competitive in the SEC West, because Alabama's not going anywhere. LSU's not going to go anywhere. Auburn's probably going to be better. You're going to have to find ways to beat teams that are just as good or even better than you. And the offense has to play a role, especially in this age of college football. You have to find ways to put up points on the scoreboard. And Ole Miss did a pretty good job of that last year. But there's some questions right now in the passing attack that need to get answered, and we'll see if that happens. But Kaden Preschorn was a huge addition to be able to help in that regard. The defense will also play a role in that. This was a defense that was fairly average, I think, overall. And I think you're bringing in talent in the transfer portal that will help make them better. And recruiting obviously will also play a role in that. But another transfer, not this year, but before, TCU transfer Kari Coleman came in as a player who had a really good season as a defensive end for the Horned Frogs. And I think that we kind of lost track of him simply because he was learning a new position. He was learning how to be a more of a stand-up linebacker than a rush end sort of thing. I think that was a great opportunity for him, and he's found a way to really capitalize on that. And this defense is lucky to have him. He had a really solid year, 42 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks. Still has this skill set to be able to come off the edge and make an impact, but he is more of that linebacker that is learning how to be a more impactful player by making plays and getting guys in position and whatnot. 6'2", 220 pounds. Really like what he could do, and maybe we're going to see his best year yet. The final player that we'll talk about is one that everybody knows. Quinn Judkins is one of the best running backs in college football. As a freshman, 1,500 yards, 16 touchdowns. Lane Kiffin's story about recruiting him is one of the cooler ones in college football. I think a lot of people overlooked Quinshon Judkins, and now they're regretting that. And you're going to see him for 2 more years. You're going to see him running through people, running past people, making big plays for 2 more years. And that should be terrifying if you're an SEC team. And it should even be even more terrifying if the Ole Miss Rebels can find a way to move the ball through the air more efficiently. If they're able to do that, if they're able to open up the running lanes for Quinshon Judkins, that are giving him more space, then Ole Miss is going to be in business. Ole Miss is going to be a really good team. And once again, Lane Kiffin will be in the spotlight whether people want him or not.